What it do, YouTube? Welcome back to my chip shortage bargain project vehicle. As you just saw, I replaced the valve cover, the gasket, the spark plugs, and the ignition coils. And I did that for two reasons. One, I had a laundry list of codes that I believe led to the valve cover and everything else. And then I also had an oil leak on the rear passenger side where oil was getting into my catalytic converter and smoking. And that's the way I purchased it. So after doing that replacement, I did remove two codes, which is great, but I'm still left with codes P112F, 28A0 and P0300, and that one's a random misfire. So doing some research, I found out those codes typically lead to some kind of vacuum leak. So I went ahead and purchased a smoker from Amazon, used it for the first time, and I started smoking through the intake, which I did not find any leaks, which is great. And then I went ahead and smoked through the valve cover. I just removed the oil cap, hooked up a glove, and smoked through there. And then within minutes, smoke was coming out through the front seal, or what BMW calls the front crankshaft seal. So that's our problem. So I just crawled underneath the vehicle. I wanted to do some investigation, so I went and drained the oil and used a bore scope to try to send the bore scope through the drain plug. Didn't work out so much, so I went ahead and removed the oil sensor. And within removing the oil sensor in seconds, I was greeted with a great surprise. And yeah, I just found a piece of dry belt inside my engine. So this is, you know, circling around in the oil pan. So this leads me to believe that I have a issue which isn't too common, or is common. It sounds like the issue is that your oil filter housing gasket, over time, if it's not taken care of, the oil will drip onto your drive belt and it gets saturated, and then over time that drive belt will just end up slipping off the pulleys and the tensioners, and the easiest path of resistance where it goes is to get sucked in behind the harmonic balance right through that crankshaft seal. So this is what I'm left with. So now I need to contact our friends over ECS Tuning. They do make a kit for the N54s and the N55s to remove and replace that crankshaft seal. Who would have known this is such a problem? But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and change the name from my chip shortage bargain car to now this is Project Belt Eater, because I have some dry belts in there and I still never had this thing on the road. So stay tuned, watch me tackle these challenges and get this back on the road. Thanks for watching. Okay. So what we got to do is to change this front main seal, we got to remove a bunch of stuff. So I got to remove this air box, I think. I got to remove the center support, a bunch of other stuff. The car is jacked up. We're just going to start with trying to remove some of these things. Okay, so take that off here. Don't know what this goes to. These out with a little plastic pry bar. Okay, so I'm going to take this off, this front strut, and this is using, I think it's a 13 millimeter. There. Also remove some of these air conditioning lines off this strut bar. Trying to get this out without damaging my AC line, and it's just very tough to get in here. Okay, get the smaller one out, and then maybe the top one will come out better. Oh, there we go. That was not fun. So, trying to get it out without moving all this. Okay, I think I gotta remove the expansion valve. All right, so I'm gonna have to take out this, I'm gonna loosen this coolant fill thing here. I think because I gotta get this out of the way, so let me just take a lock on these picks and just lift this up. No idea what I'm doing, guys. So I think that's what we do. It's probably gonna douche fluid everywhere. Oh, not bad. So I'm just gonna take that out so it's out of the way, and then this allows me to, I think, finally get access to what I need to do. And that's it. And this thing is out now, so yay. See, this is where all the connections were for the hose, so I need to remember it. Now this one's broken because clearly someone's changed the thermostat and water pump from what I was told. But man, I still got these AC lines in play, which I don't think there's anything you can do about that. So stay tuned. Now we have access to get to the electric fan, and that's what we're gonna go ahead and remove. Again, the battery's been disconnected to the car. In order to remove that connector, which is on the passenger side, I had to grab a pry tool. There is a plastic rivet that's holding the cable into the subframe. So once that's disconnected, that'll allow you to have enough slack to pull up the power from the fan, as shown here. This part's a little tricky to explain, but just to the left of that connector, there is a flap that needs to use a plastic pry tool or a screwdriver and push down, and that flap will come out. Over to the driver's side, there is a rubber grommet that's connected to the charge pipe. Spraying some silicone in there with enough force, using an extra set of hands, you can just simply lift that out. And then there's the same type of flap on the driver's side. It's a little hard to see, but once those two flaps are removed, then you can get access as shown here. You don't need to remove anything past what I'm showing you here. So what we're gonna do is, I need to replace this belt anyway, since I don't trust it, since the last one probably ended up in the engine. So I'm gonna replace my idler tensioner, which is right there. That's we're using a T60. It's very hard to see in there, but all you're gonna do is just kind of move it. You're gonna just twist it to the right, like you're tightening it. Using a breaker bar and a T60. Is it loose?
Yeah, now we just got to take it off the alternator.
Yeah, so now it's loose. So we're moving this with a T60. It goes right in there. This is bad, but it's very hard to see, and then you can see my belt. So of course, do your pictures, do your drawings before you take this out, or else you're gonna be in big trouble trying to remember where it goes. So one of the things we're gonna do now is, I have this Alsco, it's like a knockoff GoPro I've been using. So I need to get and look at the harmonic balance, and there's an app, so you can actually use this app, and you can see as I'm dropping things down, I can actually see this. So this is what we're going to be doing, so I can actually see the harmonic balance, because if not, it's very hard to see. So anyway, this is just something that we're going to need to do. So this harmonic balance, this thing's got to come out. Don't take off the bolt, the big bolt in the middle. It's just the 6, I think, on the side, those e-torques. So there's, of course, better videos than mine that are out there. So I'm just going to show you what I'm going through with Project Belt Eater here. Now it's time to go ahead and remove the harmonic balance. And what I'm using here is an E12 and a giant socket. And that giant socket is on the crankshaft itself, and it's turned to the right like you're putting pressure on it, not loosening it. If you do accidentally take off that big bolt in the middle, that will be catastrophic. What I'm doing here now is I'm just switching to my electric ratchet, removing all those E12s, there's 8 of them, and I'm just taking my time. A big help is me using my Caso action camera. The app works on my phone, so I'm just looking at my phone and seeing where my ratchet is. But this is like a big game of Braille. Now that the last bolt's out, I'm going to go ahead and remove the harmonic balance to see the damage that's been done. and right there you can see the previous drive belt sucked right in through the crankshaft seal. So at this time you just want to be patient, peel out what you can. If anything does fall behind it, it will go into the oil pan, which is really no big deal since I have to take the oil pan off anyway to get out all the drive belt parts before it gets any more damage and gets sucked into the oil pickup tube. And then the pick there, just cleaning up and finishing. So I'm using the kit I just received from ECS Tuning. There's two different types of removal tools. First I'm going with the cone style by just screwing it by hand really tight until it stops, and then switching over to this wrench and then tightening it. Should be really snug. And then there's this long bolt here. I just used a ratcheting wrench, tightening it. It gets leverage off the crankshaft itself, and the idea is supposed to pull it out. It didn't. So I'm using the other tool that came with the kit. This one uses bolts that screw into the actual crankshaft, and then you use these drywall screws, which is a little weird. So I just put them in by hand and then tighten them down. Then I went ahead and switched over to my electric ratchet and just made sure they were really tight. Then you just go ahead and remove those 4 bolts that are in the crankshaft. And same with the other tool, use this long bolt, leverage off the crankshaft, and it's supposed to pull it out. Unfortunately, this was unsuccessful. Those screws were missing the seal or weren't grabbing it right. So I had to do some innovation here. So doing some research, I found out that the cone style tool is what you should be using, but it actually bottoms out on the crankshaft bolt. So I had to go find a local machine shop who would fabricate and actually extend the tool itself to where it dig in deeper. And you can see here I'm actually removing it. So this was a very exciting finally got the front crankshaft seal out. This is what it is. So you also notice that this tool had to be retrofitted. It's kind of hard to see, but it was extended about 3/8 of an inch, and when you actually look in there, you'll see that there's been a hole drilled and pulled out. So what happens is the crankshaft bolt hits and bottoms out. So to give you an idea, this is a brand new one, right? Same thing. So if you look at these two together, you'll notice, the factory one is flat. So when you look inside of it, it's flat in there as well. So it's just, sorry for the poor lighting. So a little bit different. So you are going to have to get this tool retrofitted if your seal's is bad. So this seal is bad, and of course ended up doing more damage to the engine than it needed to be. So if we look at the new seal, so this is the new seal, it's pretty thick. This one is very thin. So you can kind of see there the circumference is a lot different. So anyway, yeah, so this cost me, these tools are pretty expensive, and just this removal tool, this works with the N94 and N55. This tool itself is about $70, and expect to spend about another $100, $150 or more to get this retrofitted, just to get it out, because it won't get in there enough to bite into it the way it's designed. So anyway, something to point out on this is that's the placement to put the cover on it to squeeze it in. So in other videos you might see they take the actual seal, and what happens is it slides over, but this one does not. So I'm thinking that we're going to have to take this off, put this on, and then put it back together. So we'll show you that. So here's the tool that you see that goes, this gets bolts into the crankshaft, and then when it ends up going, there's this cover, and it slides in, and then blah blah blah, squeeze it in. So in other videos you may have seen, you put this in, you mount it to the crankshaft, and then you put the seal over it, and then it kind of pushes. Well, you can see that this isn't working, and if I take this off, so this is, depending on, this is supposed to be for the N55, and you can see like this doesn't work. So, and then this one from the other videos I saw, this is like usually much wider and taller, and then it goes over it. So What we're going to have to do is put the seal on over the actual crankshaft and then put this tool over it like this. Hopefully it bolts down, and then this. So if you're, I'm going to try to do a good job of doing this, filming this, but if not, you can see what my concept is. So this is going to go over the crankshaft seal as it is, not all the way. I got to put some gray, that like gray stuff, that gray RTV. I'm going to put it here and then slide it on and then do my best. So anyway, that's what we're doing. So just go ahead and put the seal in. I'm putting pressure and moving at the same time because I'm actually trying to line it up on the block. You'll see here that there's actually indication on the block. You'll see a little notch. Those need to line up together. And then just continue to go around and put pressure and try to push it in evenly. And then I switch over to the tool, try to give it some good leverage here. All right, so I put the seal in, and there's those two edges on the seal. And I'm gonna use this ultra gray. This is a gasket maker. I've seen other people in other forms just use this. I think this is the most similar to the BMW RTV. There's like two different types. There's like one that comes in a tube, one that you inject. The one that you inject costs like $80, which is ridiculous. So I bought this for like $9. And then also better view, this is the primer. So this is the primer. This is a BMW part. If you can see that, just has a little jar, and it's got a like a little like paintbrush on there, like you're doing your nails. So I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just, you know, kind of following along other people's videos, but I'm trying to do a better job of filming it, and mine's a little bit different situation. So I'm going to go ahead and use this BMW primer. It is recommended that you paint it just where those creases are on the seal and on the block. So just paint it, give it about 15 to 20 minutes before you move on to the next step of applying the gray RTV. Again, this is not the BMW version of the RTV. That's about $80 and it gets injected in the seal, but many other people have used this. It's hard to keep it clean, as you can see, but once you get it in there, you kind of have to work fast before it dries. But now I'm going to go ahead and put the tool in to recess it into the crankshaft. And then just get it pretty snug. Of course, this is not going to stay there, so just get it snugged, and then you can go ahead and put that tool in, get it on hand tight as best you can. Then you're going to just start wrenching it on there. And then just check periodically. You want to get that seal nice and flush. So just take your time, go back and forth, look at it, and then once you're satisfied with it, it should look something like this. So now that the seal's in, the instructions say you have to let it dry for 4 hours before doing anything else. So I figured this is a good time for me to use my wireless borescope, send it down through the oil cap, fill, and see if there's any belt parts around the timing chain, around the vanos, anywhere else. So the borescope has a camera on it and a hook, so it's kind of like playing a game here. But I just want to kind of show you behind the scenes, because I'm going to go ahead and switch over to showing you the actual footage from the camera. So this part kind of reminds me of those claw games at the arcades where you're trying to get a stuffed animal, but in this case you're trying to get belt pieces out. So I'm using my borescope with a hook on it, and it's a great idea if you're doing the hook concept to use some electrical tape or something to secure the hook to the camera. I also used oil on the hook so I didn't cause any more scarring to the metal. And as I'm grabbing these belt pieces, I'm bringing them to the top, and I'm either using my fingers or some kind of tweezers to grab them. It's a big challenge. This is also a good idea for a pre-purchase inspection if you're allowed to send the camera down. If this is the case, I would have avoided buying this project, but then you wouldn't have this great footage to reference. All right, so we just put our seal in. It's still dry and it needs a couple more hours. This engine's completely out of oil, so I just loosened this up. This is a tool to remove the oil filter. So of course remove the oil filter, and this thing's completely dry. So what I'm going to do is I got it all set up here. I'm just going to kind of set it in here a little bit like this, and I just don't want any dry starts, so I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to try to saturate it just a little bit. Okay. So if you're smart, you use here and spin it. Got about a half a quart in there. It's probably going to ooze out. I'm just hand tightening it. Do it all by hand. So now it's hand tight, just using this wrench. Just a little snug. And this tool is kind of crappy, but just kind of mix it on up. Alright, so now I put some oil in the oil filter. I asked Google, and of course Google says, you know, how many quarts? It says 6.9. So I'm going to just fill the rest up here. So I bought 7 quarts, probably actually 8 quarts. So hopefully the oil sensor below is put back together okay. You guys don't really need to see me doing this, but I do everything half-ass.
Turn it over.
Because I have no idea what I'm doing.
Turn it over.
Who are you? You do it. Oh, there we go. Much smarter.
Oop. Yeah, right.
Ashley, come on.
We're using the cheapest oil we can.
Cheapest full synthetic.
Yeah, because we're going to drain it out. Make sure everything, if there's something that fell in or particles, we can get it out.
Now I'm going to take this big 5 quart. So this does take almost 7 quarts, so I'm just going to fill it probably like 6.5 quarts-ish or something like that, and check her out.
Can't see anything, but
That's okay. You're close. There you go. As you can tell by my channel, I don't do very smart things. Like buying old German expensive cars. Alright, so we're going to keep filling with 1 more quart and go from there. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to replace that pulley right there. This is the replacement. So this one's an IDA, I think what it is, or INA, something like that. This just takes a T50. You can see it goes right in there. Another thing we're going to do is I'm going to put some blue Loctite, just a little bit of blue Loctite on the end there. And yeah, so I just need to pull off the dust cover off that one. Should be pretty self-explanatory. So using that T50, I just put in the pulley, break it loose. It takes a little bit of fight, but not much. But once you do get it loose, you'll notice that the pulley will start spinning in weird directions. It's like it's fighting you. But yeah, just keep going at it and loosening it. And then I did take the take it off the ratchet there and just spun off by hand. Pretty easy. All right, so I just got the idler out. So this is the old one. I just want you to hear the difference. Here's the new one. Barely spins. A little bit of noise. But you can also see this thing's pretty loud shaking it. This one makes no sound.
this one actually, when you grab a hold of it, if it wiggles a little bit, it's pretty much gone. It should be solid. This one did have a little bit of play in it. That's one of the main reasons we changed it.
So with the new one here, we're putting a little bit of Loctite on it. This is the Loctite gel, not the super liquidy kind. So just a little bit of Loctite. Hopefully it goes a long way. I don't know if I need to rub it in. All right. So this is just going back in. So I skipped the part of threading in this pulley by hand and then just got it pretty much hand tight. Now I'm going in with my torque wrench and I'm going to torque it down to about 40 Newton meters or 30 foot-pounds. Yeah, it's pretty easy to do, but just don't strip those bolts. All right, so I just took off the top one. It's the same process, so there's the top idler. This one's actually good, and this one's been recently replaced, but it's such a cheap part you never know. But you can see all the oil residue. So that, again, is coming from the issue of the oil filter gasket being bad. So exact same ones. This is the new one. Put some blue Loctite on it, but it's the same INA brand. I guess it's a little bit updated, but yeah, same thing. So it takes a T50. It's torques down to 50 Newton meters, so I'm going to do the same thing again. So, all right. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off. This is the tensioner. Usually, what you have to do, when you try to remove it or loosen it, you're going to put your on like an E60 or something like that, and you're gonna bend it so you can move the belt. Well, in this case, there's no belt. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove, and I'll show you with my other camera, I'm gonna remove this bolt, which is gonna be an E14. So it's just gonna come out, and then I guess then I can remove this once it's in there. So
After you put the belt on.
After you put the belt on, of course, right? Then you're gonna remove this. So anyway, I'll show you with my other camera. So similar process like the pulleys. You're just going to remove this. This uses an E14 instead of the T50s. But once you get it loose and break it loose, I just switch over to my electric ratchet to remove it. And this is me just putting it back on, threading it by hand. There are grooves, and this thing can only go back in one way. So it's a good idea just to check it out. So once you just thread it by hand, then you can go ahead and switch over to an electric ratchet if you like, or just keep working at it. And then I'm going to go ahead and torque it down. This one does torque down to 50 Newton meters, or about 37 foot-pounds of torque. And once that's done, one of the key things is that you just want to double check to make sure that this thing is not going to end up resting on the engine block. This is not at its normal resting place. So it's been 4 hours, such as the instruction had us wait, and we did a lot in between. But at this time, I'm going to go ahead and start the engine up. And it's okay to let this engine run for about a minute or so. The reason is because this is an N55 engine. The water pump is electric, it is not mechanical. So just by running the engine, we can see if there's any issues with our seal, oil leaks, the seal's loose, any types of wobbles. So that's why we're running it this way. So I'm going to kill it here, and then just take another look at it with my camera here, just to see if I can see any oil or any type of issues. But if not, we're okay to go. And that gray stuff you see, that's just the RTV. So I just got done testing the engine with no belt or anything on it, just to see if the crankshaft seal will hold. It looks like it does. I'm gonna end up putting one of these on. This is a Vargas N55, I think they call it a crank guard or crank seal guard. Not having this is what caused all the damage. So if your engine N55, N54 is still good and hasn't had this problem yet, this is that insurance policy everyone talks about. So I don't know if you can really see that there, but this is what I'm gonna put in. So it comes with its own bolts. I have to remove the two, they're like E13s, but I don't have an E13, so I have to use the E14. So I guess I'm gonna use these bolts to put it in there, which look like some kind of T something. So to install the crank seal guard, I just crawled underneath here using a E13, E14, and you got to remove these two bolts. So I'm underneath, I removed the skin plate, and just simply came out no problem on the passenger side. Switching over to the driver's side, it was a little bit different story. I don't know what was going on, but it looks like that pulley's in the way. So there's no way to fit this these E13 socket on the ratchet, even if I use some kind of flexible head, no matter what. So I'm just showing you here so you can kind of see the struggles that I went through. Even just try to put it just a socket in Word. So I got smart and said, hey, why not try using a box-in wrench, so like E13 or 10 millimeter, and it just came out so much simpler. So instead of wasting hours, I figured out in a matter of minutes you can take these things off. Now I'm installing the crank seal guard, just checking to see if it's loose, the fitment. And when it comes to putting the bolts back in, I'm reusing the old ones because the new ones use some kind of Torx bit, and there's just no way you can get a torque in there. So unfortunately, I'm reusing the old ones. If this was a better kit, I would recommend that Vargas just give new aluminum bolts like the ones that were in there. It works perfectly. Just snug them in there really good, both sides. And now I'm doing the same thing, starting the engine to making sure that the seal is not binding, scratching, grinding, okay, so whatever, but all is good. On the next step in the process is to put this harmonic balance back on. These, again, going back, it takes the E12. I am going to put a dab of blue Loctite on every one of these. And put this back on. I'm not going to film it because you guys seen me do it before. And then I'm going to put the new belt on and then put this radiator back in. Alright, so I tested this out a few different times. Sorry for poor lighting, it's super dark. I put the harmonic balancer back on, put my belts back on. It's very hard to see. But just make your diagrams. Word of advice, when you're doing the harmonic balance bolts down to I think 35 Newton meters is what you have to tighten them down to, and there's a certain pattern you got to do. But if you're trying to put these in by hand, like go in there, it's so hard to even reach down here and do it. So what I was doing to make it a lot easier, I'd put the bolt in. This is an E12. I think someone says E10, but I was taking E12. And then what you're going to do is you're going to wrap electrical tape around, like put the bolts in here, but just put it around the edge so it just like barely sticks in there. So if you like hold it sideways, it won't come out. But you just start it by hand, and then once you get it tight enough, you just pull really hard, and then the tape will actually stick to this, and then go back in there and then tighten it by hand some more with this, and then use your torque wrench. Other than that, I got to put the fan back in, and that's it. It's a wrap. And then I'm going to check it for codes and pray that things are better. Who knows? But anyway, so I got everything back together. I was able to put the strut bar back on. So I put the harmonic balancer back on, the belts, so you can see I got all the belts back on, no tension, it's hard to see, but yeah, everything's back together. So a few things, I already started the car up. Notice when I ran my scanner, and I'll show you the footage here from my scan. So previously I had a code 28A0, and if you see this code when you're pre-checking vehicles, you do an inspection, it's going to be pretty sure that this 28A0 is due to the front crankshaft seal. I had it before. I ran the car, ran my scanner, and then you'll see here that it went from being active to being in history, right? So it's there, but it's not there, but it still keeps showing up as history when I run my scanner. So one of the things I did, and this is helpful for everybody, poor lighting here, but in order to get rid of that 28A0 as a history, a bulletin that BMW have you do. But what that bulletin saying is it needs the DME needs to be reprogrammed. All you're gonna end up doing, poor lighting, is that you're going to disconnect this line right here. So this little tab, you're going to disconnect this, and you'll see this one, the little orange circle on it. So there's a pin underneath, and you're going to squeeze it from underneath, and you're just going to pull it off. So what I did was I pulled this off, started the vehicle. The procedure says let it run for 15 minutes. And then what I did was, while it's still running, I went ahead and just snapped this back in. So just unplug it, let it run for 15 minutes. It's going to run like crap. Probably runs like crap anyway. And then 15 minutes later, before you turn on the vehicle, I was told to push this back in and then go turn it off. And then now, you can see from my codes, it doesn't even show as history, it's just gone. So, pretty cool. So this solves the code 28A0. I gotta take this thing into the shop. So I'm gonna take it into a professional that has more knowledge than I do, and we're gonna change out the oil pan. So I got some deliveries from ECS Tuning. So I have to go in and take my car in for the oil pan gasket to be removed. There's more to the oil pan gasket than just the oil pan gasket. There's other parts. So I'm gonna kind of just start opening the box and kind of show you what I'm talking about here. So opening up those 3 ECS boxes. This is the oil pan, right? This is the oil pan. Like, we know we need to do this. This is a $40 part. This is a BMW OEM part right here. But the other things you gotta think about is, allegedly the oil pan, when you take the oil pan down, they got one-time use bolts. So I bought the Reen brand. It's pretty loud, but like, this is for N55, right? Another thing that you're gonna need is you're gonna tear apart that front differential. So they sent me a kit here of all the different things I need. So like, this is saying like front disc service kit, front axle, O-ring, right? So these are all different things. Oh, and of course, love these wine vouchers all the time. So I'll put the links in the description. These are all various different parts that you're gonna end up touching anyway, all these different seals for the front diff, right? So just know that, you're not gonna just get an oil pan and call it good. You're gonna need all these other parts. And I don't know what these go to. These are another for the front diff. I think this is for the axles. This is a seal with locking nut. You're gonna need 2 of those. You can get into easy to remove while you're there. These are the motor mounts. You're gonna need 2 of them. These are the hammer tech,
I'm not a huge fan of Hamburg Tech, but these are about $60 versus the OEM ones were probably were double. That wasn't a problem. It was I had to wait like 2 months to get them, so I went with these Hamburg Techs. Pretty affordable. And then this is the front diff oil, right? So you're gonna end up losing some. So when you talk to ECS or whoever you're gonna use, but I recommend using ECS. These are all the things you're gonna need. You're gonna need all these various parts, not just the oil pan gasket. So this is what I'm gonna take to the mechanic tomorrow. First stages of doing the oil pan. Doing all this other stuff. All the front control arms, everything. Hope that stuff's all good. Just to get to dropping the front diff. So keep you posted. So looking at this, looks like someone's already done this oil pan job before, and you can see here that I have missing pan bolts. So looks like these were all stripped at one time before. Yeah, so good times. You gotta figure out what to do about that. Front shaft has to come off with all the pieces here. You can see everything hanging, supported by a stand. But yeah, we'll just keep going through it. All right, so this thing must have been cleaned out before, so they just dropped the pan, and it looks like there's no belt parts anywhere, and even the pickup tube. So looks like this thing, whoever had the belt problem before me, dropped this oil pan because there were some bolts missing and must have cleaned out all the bolts, so I'm just doing this again basically. And then coming down here, this is the actual oil pan. So not too bad, a little bit of sludge. Was there any belt pieces in here? Not really?
Very little.
Very little belt pieces.
There's just little shards.
All right, well, I was hoping to get better content, but good thing is that I guess someone did the right thing before and just didn't get it out of the top of the engine. You clean this up now? Yeah. All right. And then just showing all other footage here. Dropping the cross members, power steering, everything being dropped out. It's kind of cool to see all this. But yeah, we are good. All right, let's do this. So this thing just got dropped off. I haven't driven it anywhere. All right, let's take this thing for a spin. I put like 1 mile on this thing since I've had it. Let's see how this goes. It's idling at about 600. Which isn't very good, but doesn't seem to be wanting to bog out or anything like that, so that's good. God, I love how tight the steering is on these E70s. I need to get this thing smogged, so can't get it smogged unless I put some miles on it with no check engine lights, so let's see if I'm that lucky. So just pulled in the driveway after driving, you know, I don't know, probably put like 2 miles on it. I'm gonna use the Blue Driver. I'm just gonna open the Blue Driver app. See what this thing does. I'm gonna read codes. So got it connected. So one of the things I want to do is there's a few different options here. Let me just focus in here. So I want to go to like the all system modules. So I'm gonna scan that. So let's see, and I think it's gonna ask me to turn it off and turn it on again. So yeah, BMW recommends that you turn the ignition off. So I'm gonna turn it off again. Do all that. Everything's gonna move. Give it a few seconds. The motor's got to burn out after all those years. Turn it back on. This thing's very slow. That is a big problem with it. It's just, I don't know if you can see that, it's not doing a very good job, but it's just super slow. So I'm gonna fast forward through this. Okay, so now it's about to hit 100%, and yeah, look at that. No, none of those pending codes, none of the P112Fs, 28A0s. Multiple misfires, cylinder 1, 2, 5, whatever. Like, you'll see a better shot of this, but wow, that's pretty crazy. But to have no codes, that's pretty crazy. And then I'm gonna do something else where I'm gonna go to smog. There's a smog check button here. Scan. I think it's gonna see if we pass everything. So, I mean, looking at that. So my catalyst is good. My evap system's not good. Vehicle has not yet completed the test. Oxygen sensor, heater. So I think I can probably go get this thing smogged. But yeah, if I get this thing smogged, then I can get registered and then put some more miles on it and then on to the next project. But I got other things to do with this. So this has been Project Belt Eater, right? This thing's been an absolute pain in the butt. So Project Belt Eater's on the road. After I ran my code scanner, there was no codes. Went ahead and got it smogged, it passed, and then went and got it registered. So now I'm enjoying it for the first time, putting some miles on it. Who would have thought this is such a common problem with these N55s, with the drive belt slipping off, getting sucked in through the crankshaft seal, and causing massive havoc. This is what was found in my engine, so please avoid this. If this has not happened to you yet, make the small investment into an insurance policy. Buy a crankshaft guard. Mine is from Vargas. ECS Tuning makes them, Keys Motorsport, amongst other people. So I want to say thank you for everyone that helped me get this car back on the road. I want to thank Tyler over ECS Tuning. I appreciate you going through the same thing and helping me with it, and the great hookups on pricing. I want to say thank you to Vito over at Mike's Auto Repair in Vancouver, Washington. You provided so much insight from the work that you've done on this with a previous owner. I want to thank Jason over at Alpha Motorworks for walking me through what these codes could be. The people over at Beamer Fest. My wife for supporting my crazy car addiction. After done with this, I'll just buy more, so thank you for being an enabler for that. And most importantly, I want to thank my father. Without you, none of this would be possible. You're crazy enough to support my car addictions and showing up and helping me with these two-man jobs. So everyone out there, thank you so much. More videos to come and I'm going to start enjoying this car as I put more miles on it.